I'm Ethan, 32M, and I've been a software developer for the past decade. I met my wife, Olive, 30F, at a tech conference 6 years ago. She works in marketing for a tech startup, so we hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared love of gadgets and innovation. We got married 2 years later, and for the most part, our life together has been fantastic. The one constant source of tension in our relationship has been my mother-in-law, Cindy, 58F. Cindy is what you'd call a traditional homemaker, and she takes immense pride in her domestic skills. She can whip up a gourmet meal from scratch, sew a perfect hem on any garment, and keep a house so spotless you could eat off the floors. These are all admirable skills, and I've always respected her for them. The problem is, Cindy seems to think that these are the only skills worth having. She constantly belittles my abilities because I'm not what she considers handy around the house. Sure, I can put together IKEA furniture and do basic home maintenance, but anything beyond that is out of my comfort zone. Growing up, my family was different from Cindy's. My dad was a college professor, and my mom was a librarian. They valued intellectual pursuits over practical skills. We always hired professionals for home repairs or renovations. As a result, I never learned many of the handyman skills that Cindy deems essential. Cindy, on the other hand, grew up in a rural area where self-sufficiency was crucial. She learned how to do everything from fixing leaky pipes to rewiring electrical outlets out of necessity. Her late husband, Olive's father, was a contractor, so she picked up even more skills from him. Over the years, Cindy has helped us with various home repairs, which I genuinely appreciate. However, she never misses an opportunity to make snide comments about my lack of real skills. She's made remarks like, "I guess they don't teach you how to use a hammer in those fancy coding boot camps," or "It's a good thing Olive married me along with you, or this house would fall apart." I've always tried to bite my tongue and not let it get to me. Olive often tells me to ignore her mother's comments, saying that's just how she is. But it's been wearing me down, chipping away at my self-esteem bit by bit. Last Thanksgiving, things came to a head. We were all at Cindy's house, Olive, me, Cindy, Olive's brother Jack, 28M, and his wife Emma, 27F. Cindy was preparing the turkey, a 20-pound behemoth that she'd been fussing over all morning. Everything was going according to plan until suddenly, her oven stopped working. Cindy started panicking, saying dinner would be ruined. The turkey was only half cooked, and we had a house full of hungry people. I offered to take a look, thinking it might be a simple fix. Cindy scoffed and said, "No offense, Ethan, but we need someone who knows what they're doing. Jack, can you check it out?" Jack, who works as a gym teacher, tried his best but couldn't figure out what was wrong. Cindy was getting more stressed by the minute, her face red and her hands shaking as she tried to come up with a solution. I asked if I could try again, and she reluctantly agreed, probably feeling she had no other choice. It turned out the oven's touchpad was locked, a safety feature to prevent accidental changes during cooking. I unlocked it, and the oven started working immediately. Instead of thanking me, Cindy muttered, "Well, I guess those computer skills are good for something after all." The rest of the family looked uncomfortable, but no one said anything. Throughout dinner, Cindy kept making backhanded compliments about how surprised she was that I could fix something in the real world. I bit my tongue, not wanting to cause a scene during the holiday meal. But inside, I was seething. A week later, Cindy called me in a panic. She had accidentally deleted some important files from her computer and needed them for her volunteer work at the local church. She helps organize their annual Christmas charity drive, and all the donor information was in those files. Despite my frustration with her, I agreed to help and went over to her house. When I arrived, I found her computer in a state of absolute chaos. It was riddled with viruses, pop-ups were appearing every few seconds, and it was running so slowly that opening a simple text document took several minutes. I spent hours cleaning it up, recovering her files, and setting up proper antivirus software. As I was working, Cindy kept hovering over my shoulder, making comments like, "I don't know why this has to take so long, and in my day, we didn't need all this technology to get things done." She even implied that I might be snooping through her personal files, which was both offensive and ironic given that I was there to help her. Finally, after I had fixed everything and recovered her lost files, I decided I'd had enough. I turned to her and said, "Cindy, I've noticed you have a lot of suspicious downloads here. You really shouldn't click on every link you see online. It's dangerous and can lead to identity theft." Cindy turned beet red and snapped, "What are you implying?" "I'm not some foolish old woman." I replied calmly, "I'm not implying anything. I'm just saying that your computer skills could use some work, just like my handyman skills. Maybe we could learn from each other instead of constantly criticizing." Cindy stormed out of the room, and I finished up and left. I felt a mix of satisfaction at finally standing up for myself and guilt for potentially hurting her feelings. But I honestly thought that maybe this would lead to a more respectful relationship between us. Later that evening, I got an angry call from Olive. Apparently, Cindy had called her in tears, saying I had humiliated her and implied she was incompetent. She twisted my words, making it sound like I had called her stupid and outdated. Olive is furious with me, saying I should have kept my mouth shut and just fixed the computer. She says I've damaged her relationship with her mother and that I need to apologize. She doesn't seem to understand or care about the months of snide comments and put-downs I've endured from Cindy. I don't think I did anything wrong. I've put up with Cindy's comments for years, always being respectful and appreciative of her help. All I did was suggest we could both improve our skills. But now the whole family is upset with me, and Olive is barely speaking to me. I'm at a loss. I love Olive, and I want to have a good relationship with her family. But I also feel like I deserve to be treated with respect. I'm tired of being the family punching bag just because my skills are different from theirs. So, Reddit, Ida for exposing my mother-in-law's incompetence with technology in front of the whole family? Should I apologize to keep the peace, or stand my ground? How do I navigate this situation without completely ruining my relationship with my wife and her family? Update 1. It's been a week since my last post, and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank everyone for their comments and insights. They really helped me see the situation from different perspectives and gave me the courage to address the issue head on. After reading your responses, I realized that while I wasn't entirely in the wrong, I could have handled the situation better. I decided to have an honest conversation with Olive about the whole situation, including how Cindy's constant criticism has been affecting me. I chose a quiet evening when we were both relaxed. I sat down with Olive and explained everything, how Cindy's comments have been chipping away at my self-esteem, how I've always tried to be respectful despite the put-downs, and how I finally snapped after years of biting my tongue. I admitted that my timing and delivery were poor, but I stood by the essence of what I said. I told her about incidents she hadn't been present for, like the time Cindy implied to our neighbors that I couldn't even change a light bulb. Or the Christmas when she gifted me a basic home repairs for dummies book in front of the entire family. I explained how these constant jabs made me feel inadequate and unappreciated, despite my success in my chosen field. To my surprise, Olive listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment before she started crying. She confessed that she'd always been aware of her mother's behavior but had been conflict avoidant, hoping it would get better on its own. She apologized for not standing up for me and promised to do better in the future. Olive shared some insights into her mother's background that I hadn't known before. Apparently, Cindy had always wanted to be an architect, but her parents couldn't afford to send her to college. Instead, she married young and channeled her frustrations into becoming the perfect homemaker. Olive suggested that perhaps her mother's criticism of my skills stemmed from her own unfulfilled dreams and insecurities. While this didn't excuse Cindy's behavior, it helped me understand her a bit better. Olive and I agreed that we needed to set some boundaries with Cindy. We decided that the next time Cindy made a critical comment, we would calmly but firmly tell her that it was unacceptable. Olive suggested that we invite Cindy over for dinner to clear the air. I was hesitant at first, worried that it would devolve into another argument, but I agreed it was necessary to move forward. We spent the next few days preparing for the dinner. Olive and I role-played different scenarios, practicing how to respond to potential criticisms or defensive reactions from Cindy. We also decided to cook the meal together, combining one of Cindy's recipes, to show we valued her skills, with a modern twist, to showcase that different approaches can work well together. The dinner was last night, and it was interesting, to say the least. Cindy arrived looking defensive, but she seemed to relax a bit when she saw we were using her lasagna recipe. As we ate, Olive took charge of the conversation. She told her mother that while we appreciated her help around the house, her constant criticism of me was unacceptable and had to stop. Cindy tried to defend herself, saying she was just joking and that I was too sensitive. That's when I spoke up. I told her that jokes are only funny if everyone's laughing, and her comments had been hurtful for years. I explained that I respected her skills and would love to learn from her, but that respect needed to go both ways. To my shock, Cindy's eyes welled up with tears. She admitted that she'd always felt insecure around me because she didn't understand my job or the modern world of technology. She said she focused on criticizing my lack of traditional skills because it made her feel more valuable. This led to a long, honest conversation about our feelings and insecurities. Cindy opened up about her regrets of not pursuing higher education and how she sometimes felt left behind in the rapidly changing world. I shared how I sometimes felt inadequate because I couldn't do the things my father-in-law had been able to do. By the end of the night, Cindy and I had reached an understanding. We agreed to teach each other our respective skills. She'd show me some home repair basics, and I'd help her become more comfortable with technology. We even set up a schedule for weekly skill exchange sessions. It's not perfect, and I know we have a long way to go, but it feels like a step in the right direction. Olive is relieved that we're trying to work things out, and I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. There were moments during the dinner when old habits threatened to resurface. Cindy made a comment about the fancy way we'd modified her recipe, and I had to bite back a sarcastic response. But we both caught ourselves and tried to steer the conversation in a more positive direction. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. I know it won't be smooth sailing all the time, but at least now we're all aware of the issue and actively working to improve our relationships. I'll keep you updated on how our skill exchange sessions go. Wish us luck. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and I wanted to share how things have been going with Cindy and our skill exchange agreement. We've had 4 sessions so far, 2 where Cindy taught me some basic home repair skills, and 2 where I helped her with technology. I have to admit, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. Our first session was about basic plumbing. Cindy showed me how to fix a leaky faucet and unclog a drain. Despite my initial nervousness, it went surprisingly well. Cindy was patient and explained things clearly. I could tell she was enjoying being the teacher for once. There was a moment when I struggled to get the right amount of torque on a pipe wrench, and I braced myself for a cutting remark. Instead, Cindy just adjusted my grip and encouraged me to try again. It was a small thing, but it meant a lot. The second session was my turn to teach. I decided to start with email basics and internet safety. Cindy was attentive but got frustrated easily when she couldn't immediately grasp something. There were a few tense moments when she snapped at me, but I remained calm and we worked through it. I remembered how patient she had been with me during the plumbing lesson and tried to emulate that. By the end of the session, Cindy had successfully set up a new email account and learned how to spot potential phishing attempts. Our third session was about electrical safety and changing light fixtures. This one didn't go as smoothly. I made a mistake that could have been dangerous if Cindy hadn't caught it. She made a comment about how she was saving my life as usual, which stung a bit. I reminded her of our agreement to be respectful, and she apologized, but it was clear old habits die hard. We took a break after that, had some coffee, and talked about neutral topics before getting back to the task. The rest of the session went better, and I successfully installed a new light fixture in her kitchen. The fourth session was back to technology, focusing on smartphone use. This one was particularly challenging. Cindy struggled with the touchscreen and got increasingly frustrated. At one point, she threw her hands up and said, "This is useless. I'm too old for this newfangled nonsense." I gently reminded her that learning new skills takes time and patience, just like when I was learning from her. This seemed to calm her down, and we ended the session on a positive note. Cindy even managed to send her first text message to Olive, complete with an emoji, though she swears it was an accident. Throughout all of this, Olive has been incredibly supportive. She's sat in on a couple of sessions and has been quick to mediate if things get tense. She's told me privately that she's proud of both me and her mother for making an effort. It hasn't been easy, and there have definitely been moments where I've questioned if it's worth it. The old dynamics sometimes creep back in. Cindy will make an offhand comment about real work versus playing with computers, or I'll feel a surge of frustration when she struggles with something I consider simple. But we're both trying, and that counts for something. I can see small changes in Cindy's behavior. She's made fewer critical comments about my DIY skills, and she even called me for help when her printer wasn't working instead of immediately asking Jack. Last week, she proudly showed me how she had organized her computer files using the system I taught her. On my end, I found myself enjoying the home improvement projects more than I expected. There's a satisfaction in working with my hands that I hadn't experienced before. Don't get me wrong, I'm not about to quit my day job and become a handyman. But it's nice to feel more capable around the house. I know we still have a long way to go, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Cindy and I will never be best friends, but I hope we can develop a relationship based on mutual respect and understanding. We're learning that different skills can be valuable in different situations, and that there's always room to learn and grow, regardless of age or background. Next week, Cindy is coming over to help me install some new shelves in our guest room. It'll be the first time we're working on a project together in my home, which feels like a big step. I'm a little nervous, but also excited to show her what I've learned. Wish me luck. I'll update you on how it goes. Update 3. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I wanted to share a significant event that happened last weekend. Olive and I were hosting a big family barbecue at our place. Everyone was there, Cindy, Jack, and Emma, and even some of Olive's cousins whom I hadn't met before. I was in charge of grilling, which made me a bit nervous given my history with Cindy and manly tasks. The day started off well. Cindy arrived early to help with preparations, and we worked together in the kitchen without any major incidents. She even complimented the way I chopped vegetables, saying my knife skills had improved. It was a small thing, but it made me feel good. As guests started arriving, I headed out to the backyard to set up the grill. That's when I noticed it wasn't lighting properly. I fiddled with it for a while but couldn't figure out what was wrong. I could feel the familiar sense of dread creeping in, knowing that Cindy was watching and probably judging. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of making a snide comment, Cindy came over and asked if I needed help. I was surprised but accepted her offer. Together, we discovered that the ignition was faulty, and Cindy showed me a trick to light it manually. What happened next shocked everyone. Cindy turned to the family and said, "You know, Ethan and I have been learning a lot from each other lately. He's actually become quite handy around the house. And thanks to him, I can now video chat with my sister in Florida." The whole family went quiet. Then Jack started chuckling and said, "Well, I'll be damned. Looks like you two finally figured out how to get along." The rest of the barbecue went smoothly. Cindy and I worked together on the grill, taking turns flipping burgers and adjusting the heat. When it was time to serve, we had a system going. I'd grill the meat, and she'd arrange it on the platter with her expert presentation skills. Later, when someone wanted to show vacation photos on the TV, I helped Cindy connect her phone to display them. She fumbled a bit with the process, but instead of getting frustrated, she just laughed and said, "Bear with me, everyone. I'm still learning this tech stuff, but Ethan's a patient teacher." It wasn't all perfect, of course. There were still a few awkward moments and old habits peeking through. At one point, Cindy made a comment about how grilling was usually a man's job, but she caught herself and quickly added, "But I guess that's an outdated way of thinking, isn't it?" As the evening wound down and guests started to leave, I overheard Emma telling Olive how nice it was to see Cindy and me getting along. Olive smiled and said, "They've both been working really hard at it." After everyone left, Olive hugged me tight and thanked me for making an effort with her mother. She said she hadn't seen Cindy this relaxed at a family gathering in years. The next day, I received a text from Cindy. It read, "Thank you for yesterday. It was nice to work together. Same time next week for our lesson?" It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot. Reflecting on the past few months, I can see how far we've come. The tension that used to underlie every interaction with Cindy has eased considerably. We're not best friends, and we still have our disagreements, but there's a growing mutual respect that wasn't there before. I've learned that it's possible to find common ground even in the most unlikely situations. Cindy and I come from different generations and have very different skill sets, but we're both capable of learning and growing. Our weekly skill exchanges have become less about the actual skills and more about understanding each other's perspectives. I know we'll still have our ups and downs, but for the first time, I feel hopeful about our future as a family. It's amazing what can happen when people are willing to learn from each other and keep an open mind.